Welcome to Mastering the Art of Success. I'm your host, Debi DiMaggio. We are here today with one of my dearest friends, Debi Hemmeter. Welcome, Debi.
Hi, thanks for having me. What a beautiful opening of our hometown.
I know, right? I know, it's really great. That's our little town of Piedmont. Well, I am so excited. The hour will fly by, and I have so many questions for you. But first, I'm going to introduce you professionally. I know you personally. Debi Hemmeter, Lean In co-founder, yes, and president of Intermountain Foundation. Debi Hemmeter is the founder, or president of Intermountain Foundation, where she partners with Diane Wang to expand opportunities for women leaders across the United States. In 2013, Debi co-founded the Lean In movement alongside Sheryl Sandberg, helping spark a global conversation about leadership, ambition, and gender equality. With more than 25 years of executive leadership experience in Fortune 50 companies, Debi has built a distinguished career spanning sales, marketing, banking, and organizational leadership. Her journey began at PepsiCo and continued through senior leadership roles at Wells Fargo and Bank of America, where she led one of the company's largest retail markets, overseeing 3.4 billion in assets and a team of 1,600 employees. A passionate advocate for collaboration and inclusion, Debi believes that meaningful success is achieved when people lift one another up. She is dedicated to creating communities where women and leaders of all backgrounds can thrive, grow, and make a lasting impact. Based in Los Angeles, Debi is also the proud mother of two daughters who continue to inspire her through their own personal and professional pursuits. Welcome, Debi. So excited to have you here. And I this is just fully from our conversations over the years. Some things you won't recall that you shared with me, but I don't forget anything. So we'll
Wow.
read your life together. So I'm very, I always like to start the podcast with give us a visual of where you're from because you're certainly not there anymore. Where you're from, and did you know now when you were younger where you'd be today? Where did you grow up? What was that like, and how did you get to where you are today?
Oh, thanks. You do have an unbelievable memory. So, you guys ever meet Debbie on the streets? Be careful what you tell her. She will not forget. So, I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, Arlington Heights, middle class family. My dad went to college. My mom did not, and my brother did not. And my dad was an executive at a Fortune 500 company. I sat on my front porch in Arlington Heights, Illinois, dreaming of living in California one day. And California, to me, I visualized like Malibu, Los Angeles on the beach. I ended up in California ultimately. So I definitely knew I would get there one day, but I ended up in San Francisco, which, as you know, you live in both places. San Francisco is so different than the visual of Malibu or Southern California. But anyways, so yeah, I would sit on my front porch by myself and I would visualize where I wanted to be one day. And I would also add that my dad had incredibly high standards. He was a type A overachiever and assumed that I would get that. So uh, my mom who's no longer alive, would say, and if your grandiose plans don't work out, you need to take typing to be a secretary. And I
Oh,
said, I don't want to be a secretary. And so I had these two very different parents with very different perspectives going into my head. And so I chose very early which path I was going to go. And it was definitely down the path of my dad.
wow. So how old were you when you moved from Arlington Heights?
I lived there until I got to go to college. And interesting enough, I got into UCLA. I wouldn't get into UCLA today, but back then I and my dad, daughter of mine is going to go to Southern California where there's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So he let me go to Arizona State, which is where I ended up, which was ranked when I went there number one party school in the United States. But again, it's what you believe. And I when I went to Arizona State, it was listed number one party school, and I did do my fair share. So not denying that. I was in a sorority, Pi Phi, very proud of that. But I also worked for Senator John McCain for 5 years there. I took leadership roles at Arizona State. So you can turn any opportunity, any situation you're in, you can find a way to create what you want.
Absolutely. I want to go back to that little girl on the porch reading magazines and thumbing through the magazines, dreaming of California. In my book, Mindset in Motion, Activate Purpose, Power, and Peak Performance, I talk a lot about visualization and manifesting, but also activating. And so yes, you were dreaming and you were manifesting, but you took action. So you did leave and you ended up in Arizona. Now I didn't, my kids didn't go to Arizona. I didn't go to Arizona, but we had a house in Arizona, and I was so
Mm.
tired of saying negative things about ASU because everyone I have met in my life from ASU went on to do great things. So I don't like when people bash universities because there's a lot of great people that come out of all of the universities. I don't care if it's MIT or ASU. And so you're another living example of that. So I
Well,
think people
I,
bash.
I love that, and I have to say, at the time, the CEO of PepsiCo, Craig Weatherup, went to ASU, and I ended up going to PepsiCo right out of college. So yeah, and the leaders give back, and the alumni is super strong, and also a really good friend of mine. I was a Pi Phi, he was a Pike, I was a Pike little sister. Is Doug Ducey? He's a two-term governor of Arizona. So yeah, people went on to do phenomenal things.
Right. I absolutely. And they are social, yes, but we need social skills to be successful in business. So tell us about your journey because I did not really know you when you were at these corporate companies. What was it like working in a corporate environment and being a woman at PepsiCo? And then we can go on to the other companies, Wells Fargo and B of A.
Yeah. So nobody taught us back then what sponsorship or mentorship was about. Like nobody ever talked to me about that. But when I got to PepsiCo straight out of college, it was listed as a Fortune 15 company. It was one of the best companies in the world to work for at that time. And less than 20% of the workforce was female, including administrative assistants. And I
Wow.
was the first female sales management trainee in the PepsiCo system. And I landed in San Francisco in that role. And I remember, Debbie, this is going to be a story that will hit you hard because you are so into fashion and all of that. Uh, I interviewed in a suit, obviously, for the job to get the job as a sales management trainee at PepsiCo. And on day one, I got sent to a bottling facility in Milpitas, California, and I wore my suit. And they were like, they walked in, and the very first day on a hanger was a polyester short sleeve shirt with a name patch with my name spelled correctly, DEBI, gray polyester pants. And they're like, here's your uniform. And I said, wait. You never said anything about a uniform. And I looked at my watch and I'm 21 years old. And I said, you know what? I've been here for 4 hours. You don't even have to pay me for the 4 hours, but I am not wearing that uniform. And they're like, well, everyone does. What are you going to wear? And I said, well, how many women do you have in your sales management trainee program? And they're like, you're the first. I said, exactly. And that's why I'm not wearing that uniform. And I look back and I'm so proud of myself at 21 that I had the courage to stand up for myself at a Fortune 15 company. But I think that defined my role. And you talk a lot about internalization in your book. And I think that with all the external noise that's going on, you have to listen to your intuition. You have to listen to your gut. You got to not see what everyone else's do. You got to do what's right for you and follow your own values. And I did that at 21 years old. I mean, I look back at that, I'm like, how did I have the guts to do that? But it was non-negotiable for me. And they were like, fine, wear whatever you want, but we're not paying your dry cleaning bills. And I was like, fine.
That's incredible. So tell us this story because I don't know what it is. It must be something with the Debbies. We are just very strong-willed. Tell me the story about d being independent and dressing. And you were telling us a story at my book launch about going to an interview and you were gonna be passed up, but you ended up getting it. Tell us the reason why. Do you know the story I'm telling you about what you didn't wear?
When my friend told me to turn around and
No,
I
the nylons.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, this is a huge story for women. Okay. So I was interviewing for Bank of America, and that in your intro, you stated it correctly. I ran the largest market for Bank of America: sales, service, and operations, and brick and mortar banks. And it was 3.4 billion in assets. And I remember exactly what I wore to interview with the president of Bank of America at the time. I was going to be in San Francisco, but our president was in Los Angeles, Bank of America Tower. I wore a black St. John suit. I wore black tan Dolce and Gabbana 4-inch heels, but I didn't wear hosiery. But I took so much time and effort into making sure I wore exactly the right thing for that interview. So the feedback came back to the executive recruiter and said, well, the president really liked her and thought she was perfect, but she didn't wear hosiery to the interview. And he said, that's like a man not wearing a tie to an interview. And the person that I wasn't going to report to him directly, I was going to report to somebody else who was a man, and his name was Robert. Robert took his assistant out to the corner of California and Montgomery in San Francisco, and they stood out there, the two of them, for 1 hour, and they counted the number of women at that time that were wearing hosiery. And it was like something like 80% weren't wearing hosiery. And then they actually did the research that at that exact time, hosiery became not cool because of Sex in the City and Sarah Jessica Parker. And she made it cool to not wear hosiery. And so they took all of this data and they went back to the president of Bank of America and they said, you need to hire her. Like, that is the most ridiculous reason to not hire her. I ended up getting the job, but I do remember a woman who was the head of HR at the time onboarded me on my first day of work. And she said, leaned in quietly and said, we would really appreciate you wearing hosiery every day. So my entire 10 years in America, I complied and did wear hosiery because it was important to them and it was not worth the fight for me. And I was like, okay.
You got the job. So I'd say, so what is that message to people? What can you pull out of that experience? Because you were strong-headed, you went for it. So give us a little insight to women if someone was to go into a position like that. What's the mindset? How should someone try to win that?
Yeah. I was very lucky because they gave the honest feedback to the executive recruiter that was in charge of putting me in that role. And, you know, for me, I've always been a strong believer that men are allies in helping women succeed. I and so I was lucky to have male allies in that situation. I also think that data doesn't lie. Just get the data.
Uh,
And you can have your own opinions, but I knew exactly what to wear for that interview. I did it intentionally. And then I had people willing to stick up for me because the data supported me and it all made sense. So I think the more research you can do and the more allies across all diversity, all genders that you can come together and collaborate, then we all win.
Right. I love it. It's so true. That's great. So you went on from PepsiCo to, I think, Wells and then B of A. What was that journey like?
Uh, Extraordinary. I feel so fortunate. I don't feel lucky. I worked incredibly hard. And so I would love women to say, I got lucky. You didn't get lucky. You earned it. You worked hard for it. And so I feel very fortunate for my career. I was in consumer products for 10 years. when I got a call to go to work for somebody who used to be a PepsiCo exec and had moved to Wells Fargo. And Wells Fargo was a one state bank, and overnight they became an 11 state bank, a hostile takeover. And the CEO, Paul Hazen at the time, he wanted a consumer products marketer, that he didn't want a banker. And in large part, it was because Warren Buffett was Wells Fargo's largest shareholder at the time. And Warren was also Coca-Cola's largest shareholder. And he said, go hire somebody from Pepsi. Because in the US, we actually had a dominant market share, Pepsi over Coke in most states, definitely in California. And he said they have far less money, but they're way more strategic in the United States. So they purposefully went after somebody at Pepsi for the job. I will tell you, I got interviewed by, they were going to hire me as an SVP, senior vice president. I got interviewed by all EVPs, which are more senior than me. They were all women. And they were like, you don't know anything about banking. And I was like, true. Did not even know what a home equity loan was at the time, Miss Real Estate. And so
Wow.
I was like, true, I'm consumer products. And they really seemed to dislike me. And it was mainly women that interviewed me. So I got the job offer and I declined it because I was so happy where I was. And about 6 weeks later, I got a call in my office from Paul Hazen's assistant, who was the CEO of Wells Fargo Bank, and said, hey, Paul didn't have a chance to meet you on your first round of interviews. We know you turned the job down, but would you be interested in coming out to meet with him? He would like to talk to you. And we met, and I had read Warren Buffett's book, Making the American Capitalist, Always Do Your Homework, in the deepest way. I loved Paul Hazen, and he said, I told him why I declined the job, that these women EVPs were not super warm or welcoming to me. And he said, see this phone right here? He's like, you have a direct line to me. If anybody gets in your way, you call me and I will remove that barrier. And he presented the most incredible job offer to me. And then I said, well, I have one last thing. I have a 1-year-old daughter, and you're going to want me landing on the ground running. And I'm going to have to move from Chicago now to San Francisco. I said, you need to put together a relocation package for my nanny as well. And he did. Okay, you guys, this is so long ago, but he actually put together a relocation package so I could move my nanny from Chicago to San
Wow.
Francisco. I could land on the job day one running. But I
Wow.
just have consistently asked for what I need, and it's totally reasonable. That wasn't like an unreasonable ask. If he wanted me to be have full productivity from day one, like, of course, my daughter has to be taken care of.
Absolutely. So I wasn't going to ask this, but I am going to ask it because you kind of touched on it just now. You said something, and we've never really talked about this before, but you said the women weren't nice to you. So that does happen when there's people like you who are very beautiful. When they get to know you, you're beautiful and kind and super smart. But people read what they want to read, see what they want to see. So when you met with those women, you just called it out right now in your story. So how did it work with them? Because you got hired, and were they, how did they treat you? And then how just in your entire life going through work, we don't need
Mhm.
to even personal, but let's just talk about in the workplace and
Yeah.
women, and how do you work within those judgments?
Yeah. Thank you for asking the question. And I have two daughters that are out of college, and they both have very big careers in corporate America at the top companies in the country. And I give them this advice, and they've actually used this exact advice, and it's turned out the exact same way for them as it did for me all those years ago. Um, I don't like conflict, but I don't shy away from conflict. So I I remember this one woman, I won't use her name, but she really disliked me, and she was very senior and did a beautiful resume from Harvard and everything. I immediately called her and said, I'd love to take you out to lunch. Let's get to know each other. And then I start by saying, tell me what your biggest obstacle that you are facing this year and how can I help you achieve your goals? What can I do to support you? And boy, does that turn the whole conversation around immediately.
That is beautiful. That is incredible. You disarmed them.
And it's authentic. It's
Sure.
authentic because they will judge me based
Right.
on lots of different things, but then they get to know me. And if I ever write a book like you did, Debbie, I don't know, there will be a story, and I'd love to share this. I did do a 18-month startup stint in 2000 when the San Francisco .com bubble blew up. And there is this incredibly intelligent man named Scott Quaker, and I will name him in the book, and I'll send him this podcast. And he has the most stellar resume. He's one of the most brilliant men that I've ever met, but he was an analyst at the startup that I went to. And I walked in, and week one, he did not like me. He had a lot of preconceived ideas for whatever. And so we started on Monday. On a Friday afternoon, we were all in cubes. It was the startup culture. I remember I was wearing a gray pencil skirt and a black cardigan, sweater set. And I walked, of course, 4-inch heels. And then I walked up and I sat on top of his desk and crossed my legs. And I said, Scott, what are you doing after work? Let's go get a beer across the street together and get to know each other. And he looked at me like, you've got to be kidding. And so we did. It was in downtown San Francisco, and we went across the street and we got to an Irish pub and we just sat there and got a beer.
Oh,
And we started talking, and he's just one of the most brilliant men. And he was like, you know what, Debbie? He goes, this is my fault. And he said, I saw you, and you were like the girl in high school, the cheerleader that would never talk to me. And I was the guy with the pocket protector. And you guys weren't nice to me. And he goes, I naturally assumed that was
oh,
you. And Scott Quaker and I became the closest friends. And you want the smartest analyst on your team? He helped me become so successful. I couldn't have done it without him. And he's still somebody to this day, 20 years later, I can go to and
mm,
ask questions and seek advice. And we became like the best of friends. But you got to just, people have unconscious bias. They have maybe conscious bias. His, I think, was unconscious bias. But just giving somebody the opportunity and not going in with anger, not
right,
going in with a chip on your shoulder, but just actually understanding their story
right,
and actually connecting, but without that anger
right.
is like a game changer. And, Lane, my younger daughter, she did that. She's in a big tech company. She did the exact same thing with a guy and took him to lunch. And the whole dynamic changed.
No, it's so true. I mean, you just have to disarm people. And when I'm in a real estate transaction, you've got a buyer and a seller, and there's probably multiple buyers on one side, multiple sellers. Then you have multiple agents on both sides. And then you've got service providers and you've got title people and you've got so many people that are a part of that party. And you never know what someone is going through. So you can't prejudge. And it could be something that, you just have no idea. So you have to be kind to everyone and you have to give them the benefit of the doubt and work it through. And a lot of times I say, you got to pick up the phone and have a conversation because like you took the guy for a beer and had a beer so you can really get to know what was going on. So
Yeah.
super important to know, and your daughters are so incredible, and I know they're listening because I text message them to tell them we can embarrass them. We will be right back with Debi Hemmeter and Mastering the Art of Success.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical. Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Success. I'm your host, Debi DiMaggio, and we are here with my good friend, Debi Hemmeter. So, Debi, as I'm visual, you and I and my husband, Adam, your little brother, as you call him, who helped you through your divorce, we were actually skiing in Lake Tahoe, and we were on a chairlift. And although I had known you forever, our kids grew up across the street. I really didn't know a whole lot about you. When we're raising kids, we're really in the weeds with the kids, and it's all about them. So we were skiing, and you were telling us about Lean In and about Sheryl Sandberg and the story. So I did not know you were the co-founder of Lean In. That is freaking huge, a global movement, as you said. So tell us the story about Lean In and how that happened and how you met Sheryl, because it was, again, one of those random things. And I talk a lot about if you're only open to the opportunities, things are happening right out there in front of us, as long as you're aware. So go back to the video you were watching on YouTube. Go back to your house.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I love this story. And I love Sheryl Sandberg, former COO of Facebook. So this is Sheryl Sandberg did a TED Talk. And if you haven't watched it, I encourage you all to watch it, even though it was 2010. She did a TED Talk on how to get more women to the C-suite. And she really focused on 3 principles: sit at the table, make your partner an equal partner. Debi DiMaggio's husband is an equal partner. He's amazing, Adam. And don't leave before you leave. Those were her 3 principles in her TED Talk. And I didn't know who Sheryl Sandberg was. Facebook hadn't gone public yet. It was still relatively quiet. But I was like, oh my gosh, this woman has it. And at the time, I had 1,600 employees at Bank of America. And if you think about when you go into a brick and mortar bank, which most of you do online banking, I get that, but a lot of people still use banks. The tellers, the personal bankers, the banking center managers, a lot of them are women. So about 80% of my workforce was female. But at the time, I was one of the most senior executives at Bank of America, and I have long blonde hair, and I wear 4-inch heels. So it was a little bit different. So when I would walk into a bank, my employees had this insatiable appetite of, how do I get to your level one day? And at Bank of America, we did a great job of teaching financial banking skills, but we did not teach women how to advocate for themselves. And that was what Sheryl Sandberg's TED Talk was. So I saw this and I was like, this is the answer for the question that all of my employees ask me every single day. how do I get to your level one day? So I randomly emailed Sheryl Sandberg. No, I did not know her. How did I get her email address? Everyone asks. It's because she went to Harvard, and most people don't give up their EDU email addresses.
Client
So
just saying, asked, why is that? What's
well, I literally just took a chance, and I wrote all what I just said to you in an email to her. She responded herself within 30 minutes, and she said, "Come see me at Facebook. I gotta meet you." So, okay, I went back to the whole outfit thing. I was like, what do I wear to Facebook? Because at the time they were all in hoodies and ballet flats, and I was a banker, and I couldn't dress like a banker. So, pick the right outfit. Anyways, 3 days later, I went down to Facebook, and again, Facebook hadn't gone public yet. So this is like around 2011, 2012, and I said, Sheryl, I love your TED Talk, but a lot of my employees, like my tellers, haven't all gone to college. They don't know what a TED Talk is. We need to take your message and turn it into a global movement. And I'm like, and if you will use your name, because more people know Sheryl Sandberg, I will quit my job and I will run it for you. And so it wasn't called Lean In at the time. It was just that concept. So I went home and I recapped everything she and I talked about. She said, I can't do that right now. I got to take this company public, and I'm COO of Facebook. And she goes, I can't do it right now, but maybe one day. So I recapped it all, sent it, and then she started inviting me to a ton of events. She used to hold these Women of Silicon Valley events at her home, and we just began to build trust over the next year and a half. And then in August 2012, she called my cell phone and she goes, Debbie, I'm thinking of writing a book. I've written the first 2 chapters. I'm thinking of calling it Lean In. What do you think of that title? Can I send you a Word document? Will you read? And I was like, yes. And I remember sitting on the beach reading her first 2 chapters, and tears are like just running down my face, because I have now spent 25 years in corporate America. And I was like, this is what women need. And I called her and I said, I'm all in. Want me to leave my vacation early? She's like, no, finish your vacation, come in. And so in August 2012, we came together and we launched it in March 2013 at Jamie Dimon's annual CEO Summit in New York, in March 2013. And today, Lean In is in over 180 countries, and over 2 million women pledged to Lean In. And on the day of launch, we had over 250 of the Fortune 500 companies pledging to gender equality. So it was turned into a global movement.
incredible. So tell us what what that exactly meant for people who don't know. What does that mean? What did you mobilize?
It was
How?
3 pillars, and it's Lean In stories. So it was stories of women in every vertical, in every level. We had female firefighters. We had women who faced their rapists in court. We had Hillary Clinton and Barbara Bush write their Lean In stories. They were stories of inspiration so that women all over the world could see themselves in what they aspired to be. So when I was growing up, I had very few women role models to look at what I could possibly be. We wanted to share stories of women all over the world in all different verticals at all different levels that were inspirational and aspirational. And then we had Lean In education, and we partnered with Stanford Clayman Institute of Gender Research, and we had the best educational modules. And you can still go there for free at leanin.org. And they're educational modules that help women on how to negotiate their first salary, how to negotiate a raise, what is your body language saying, all different topics. And all of that education is free to everyone worldwide. And then the third element was, and the most important, was Lean In circles. And those are peer groups of 8 to 12 individuals come together on a monthly basis. And we partnered with YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and they shared their incredibly powerful curriculum for their forums. And we simplified it and put it online for Lean In circles as like, you have an agenda, You have exactly how meeting one should run, what your mission statement, how to think about your mission statement, who to invite, what is a peer, all of that. All of that information is free on leanin.org, and you can establish. And today, I believe they have over 180,000 Lean In circles.
That is
In
wow. You should be very proud of yourself. That is just, it's incredible. And one of the things I talk about in my book is even if you don't know someone, you have to reach out and ask. You did. You reached out and you asked. And the reason I'm in New York today is because I went and met Robert Refkin, the CEO and founder of Compass Global. I reached out to him right before I published my book to ask for an endorsement. I didn't know him. I reached out on a Sunday. He responded on a Sunday and said yes and got it to me right away. And I did not know him, but I emailed him. And so you never know. You have to reach out. And you're a perfect example. You just said it yourself. You reached out to Cheryl, and the rest is history. So now let's pivot. Let's talk a little bit. There's probably way more in there, but let's talk a little bit about your stint. You got really obsessed with working out and doing the Tracy Anderson method, and then we have a few. Then after that, I want to go to Intermountain and learn about that because I'm hugely into meditation and mindfulness, and I just spoke on Fox Morning Show in DC about my morning routine, which is a lot about meditation and mindfulness and starting your day out right. So let's go into your Tracy Anderson method stint and what you did with her.
Yeah. So I'll keep it brief, but I love Tracy Anderson. I love her method. Tracy Anderson began 25 years ago, and how I first, or maybe even 27, I first learned of Tracy Anderson because I was at PepsiCo, and at the time, Madonna was our brand ambassador, along with Michael Jackson. Now I'm showing you my age. They were our brand ambassadors for PepsiCo. And I saw Madonna's body be transformed. And when she went on the Blonde Ambition tour, and she was used to be like, she's always been in great shape, but she just transformed it to being this tiny little ripped dancer. And I was like, how did she do that? And Tracy Anderson was her trainer, and Tracy was on tour with Madonna. And so I became obsessed with Tracy through magazines, all of that stuff. Fast forward, I did exactly with Tracy what I did with Cheryl, and it was unconscious in a way. I I was went through a divorce, and through my email, I literally there was a vitality week that Tracy was hosting in the Hamptons, and I was like, I've wanted to do this my whole life. And so in 2017, I went to the Hamptons by myself, and I took her boot camp, which was very scary because it's tough. And I met Tracy, and it was so interesting. Tracy was going through her second divorce, and I was going through my second divorce. We had so much in common, and we just quickly connected. And I said, Tracy, I've been following you for 25 years. I want to join your team and help you grow globally. And like, what's your biggest problem? Let me help you solve it. And Tracy ended up hiring me, and I worked with her for 5 years. And I
Wow.
built her a global customer service team. And especially during COVID, when her online streaming business just skyrocketed, she's in over 52 countries online. And then her retention programs. And I have loved working with Tracy, and I love her method. And Tracy, by the way, is 51. I think she looks better today than she did in her 20s. She like, and it's not a filter, you guys. I get to see her in real life. Like, she's that healthy. So it's really fun to grow through the stages with her.
That was incredible. And again, you reached out. I love it. It's a perfect example of what you need to do if you want to get somewhere. Just ask. So
That
now to talk about how you got this job as president of Intermountain. And what is Intermountain? Tell us about it.
Okay, awesome. Well, here brings us to today. So I have the honor of working with Diane Wang, who is a business entrepreneur in Beijing, China. And she started a foundation called the Intermountain. An executive recruiter introduced me to her. She has a book called The Inner Mountain. And I read her book, of course, before I met her. Do your research, go as deep as possible. And Diane's story is just incredible, you guys. She's 57 years old today, but she started as a professor in Beijing at a school that I would not appropriately say the name correctly, uh, but it's like the MIT of US in the US. She then went on to Microsoft when Microsoft first got to Beijing, China, and she worked with Bill Gates. And she saw men jumping over her, even though her results were better. So she left Microsoft and then she went to Cisco Systems and worked with John Chambers. And she was one of the first women in Beijing, China for Cisco Systems, one of our great companies here in the US. And again, she kept rising, but men kept jumping over her. And so she looked around and she was like, huh, I think I can do this myself. So she started 30 years ago, the very first e-commerce trading platform, and it was called Joyo.com. And it was the first e-commerce trading platform within the country of China. She sold that. That is Amazon China today. So she decided that she wasn't going to retire, that she had more to do. She wanted to build the first e-commerce trading platform that would cross borders. This is before Amazon, before Alibaba. So 24 years ago, she created DHgate, which is the very first e-commerce trading platform across countries. Today, she's in 220 countries. She services 100 million active buyers and sellers in 220 countries. And so in 2023, she stepped back from CEO and she moved to chairman role. And she was like, I want to give back. And 57% of her customers on her DHgate platform are women. They're micro entrepreneurs. And on average, they have 5 to 7 employees. And she was really like, I want to help women rise and understand their internal power and their internal voice, and to quiet their minds, quiet the external noise, and focus on what was really in their heart. What is the purpose? What is your passion? And how do you bring that to life? Because she says there's the external mountain where you can climb and have the financial success and all the titles. And they all have done that, and they've gotten to the top of the mountain and they are completely depleted, completely empty, completely unhappy. And she's like, that is not a way to live. So you need to focus on your internal mountain, which is much harder to climb, and to actually listen to yourself, trust your intuition, tune out the external noise, and then you will actually achieve more external success by that. And so I got to meet her, we got to talking, and so she hired me to bring her mission and passion to the United States and Europe. And it is an honor to work with her every day.
It's incredible. What an incredible story. So how are you doing that? How are you bringing that here? What are some of the formats and ways you're doing it?
We developed, last year, we developed an Intermountain Masterclass. You can go to intermountain.org, and it's a free masterclass, and it teaches 2 of Diane's core principles. There's 2 one-hour masterclasses. They're broken out into 10-minute segments. And the first is talking to your heart. And so some Americans might find that, what does that actually mean? It actually means listening to your intuition. It actually means, like, what is it that you want to do? Like, Debbie, you wanted to write a book and you listen to that noise, even though that heart, what you had in, even though you have so much other stuff going on. You are the busiest woman I know. So you listened to that and you took the time to write the book. So first one is talking to your heart. The second one is turning obstacles into opportunities. And what I love about this, and why if you look at my resume, I select brands very carefully to work for. I am so proud of who I've gotten to align myself with. And I love aligning myself with Diane because she has taught me so much about the Eastern culture, which is a lot of meditation, going inward and listening to your intuition. And then it's also, United States and China are the two world powers. And I wanted to learn a lot more about China myself firsthand and understand if our countries collaborated and worked together, what could we achieve to leave this as a better world? I am in definitely that chapter of my life about what can I do to make this a better world?
Well, we share a friend in common, Flavio, our shaman, and I'm not involved in politics, but I am very involved in supporting women, people, and helping young people as you are. So, do you think there's a career? And what Flavio said was this is going to be a natural progression. He said women are going to start to get more involved in politics. It is going to happen organically. So, is there politics in your future to help bring this collaboration together, Debbie?
Did I talk to you about this
No,
earlier? Oh my
nope.
God.
Just
That is
very
the
intuitive. I
craziest
listen.
question. That is the craziest question. So it's so funny you should ask that. If I'm listening to my intuition, we just went through a California midterm election, a very important one here uh, for our governor. And California is the fourth largest economy in the world. It's a very important position as governor of California. And I live in Los Angeles. We are also midterm election for the mayor. And I am just so disheartened on the candidates on both sides of the aisle and who is willing to come forward and who dropped out, who we had aspired to run that wouldn't run. And I was just like, wow, maybe I should actually run for office. That is a crazy thought, but it's interesting if I share. In college, I got to work for John McCain when he was a congressman, and then I worked on his Senate campaign, and I worked for John McCain for 5 years. In fact, he wrote me a letter of recommendation to work for Pepsi. And so I love John McCain, and not because he was a Republican, he's an American hero, regardless of which party you are in. But I got to learn from him when I was 17 years old. And I always thought that I'd want to run for politics. And then I got into corporate America and I didn't. But now, as bleak as it is, I was like, I keep telling others to run for office, but like maybe I have to. I don't know.
You've got my vote, and I will be right there helping you with the campaign. But I think it's your calling, Debbie Hemmeter. I do. So give us just some tips for women or for men, for young adults. 5 tips, or let's go your 25-year-old self. What would you go back now? Give us 5 things you would tell your 25-year-old self as you were starting out in your career.
Uh, Focus on 18 months at a time, but throw out your long term roadmap. Uh, we are changing so rapidly with technology, medical advances, everything. Just, I had my life planned out, and I just felt like I would fail if I didn't achieve these milestones. And I would say you really can't plan much further out than 18 months. Uh, Number two is there is no corporate ladder anymore. It's a jungle gym, and uh, it's go all over, change industries, change verticals. Don't worry about your job title. Do follow the passion in your heart. Listen to what that calling is. Uh, if you are burnt out, do Debbie's blueprint. Seriously. And I'm seeing a lot of burnout. Also, I would say, uh, learn to become comfortable in the unknown. And I think that what is scaring everyone with the AI. And you can listen to all the experts that you want, but there isn't a single person out there that really knows our future, including Elon Musk. Um, it is a time of uncertainty. Yes, there is no one expert that's going to tell you if you do this, you're going to achieve. Just stay aware and listen, quiet the external noise and listen to what is calling you. Um, and you're going to be okay. We are all going to be okay. When, you know, There was a time when we didn't have cell phones. We are okay. There was a time when we didn't have the internet. We are okay.
Great.
We are all going to adjust.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. And Debi Hemmeter, how do people get a hold of you? Uh,
You can go to intermountain.org, or you can email me at Debi, 4 letters, DEBI, at debihemmeter.com.
well, Debi, I hope you run for mayor, governor, and president of the United States. I know your girls will be right there with me supporting you. And this was incredible. I love your story. I love your life. I love that little girl who had that vision back on her porch in Arlington Heights, Illinois. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And I love your book, and thank you for the blueprint you did for me.
You're welcome. Thank
Maybe
you.
we do one on running for office.
Well, I'll have that to you this afternoon. Debi Hemmeter for president, please. We need collaboration, and we need to come together, and we need to all rise together.
All right. Enjoy New York and have fun with the Knicks' victory.
Oh, it's so exciting. The whole city is just incredible. They're so excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything you do for me. You do so much along with your husband. Thank you both.
You are welcome.
Tune in each week for another episode of Mastering the Art of Success with host Debi DiMaggio. Thursdays, 2 p.m. Eastern. Real stories, real strategies, real success.